Hey guys, Stanford here with the Fun Robotics Network, and welcome back to an episode of Behind the Bumpers. And here, I'm hanging out with Team 9408 here at SoCal Showdown, and we're going to be taking a look at this really cool machine that they've got here. We're going to go through their Cascade elevator, their arm, the software that powers all of these crazy mechanisms, their ground algae intake, and so much more. So stay tuned for another look at that on this episode of Behind the Bumpers. All right, Carson, take it away.
Okay, so first of all, we have a 28 by 28 drive base, which is powered by swerve modules. And a fun fact about our drive base is it's lowered by an inch, which lowers our CD. And the way it's lowered is we have an extra 1x1 before we put the screws through, which means we had to extend our screws by an inch. And then accompanied with our drive base, we also have a 2-stage cascading elevator, which is powered by these two Kraken X60s, which is a 5-to-1 gear ratio that have these two guards that are connected to two gears, which then lead to this drive shaft, which is connected to these two chains that lead up to our 2-stage cascading elevator. And then on our chain, we have a chain tensioner, which also makes sure our chain is always tight, and we always check it. And then we all have our radio right here, and also LEDs for our programmers to see what the state of the robot is in. And then we also have our RSL right here to make sure that the people know. And then I'll hand it off to Anthony to describe more about our carriage.
And so going into our carriage, we have a Kraken X44 down here, and that's on a 66-to-1 gear ratio. So it actually goes out this direction, and there's a 1-to-1 gear, so that's a 44 tooth, and then that outputs to over here. And then from there, that's a sprocket, 35 chain sprocket that attaches here. In the 2024 off season, we had issues with positioning of our pivots. So you can see here, there's two herringbone gears. And these herringbone gears are attached to a West Coast Products through-bore encoder, and that through-bore encoder helps us figure out where the position of our pivot is at all times. Going off the pivot, we have our manipulator, and so our manipulator is less than 6 pounds, and that was very important to our robot, so that we didn't have to lift up so much, and so our elevator was able to fully extend within less than a second. And so going into our manipulator, it is a 4-to-1 ratio, and we're able to grab coral from the outside, and then it's also able to grab algae on this side. This is gone through multiple iterations. This is about version 7, and early on into the season, we were grabbing coral from the inside, but we found that wasn't very effective because it lowered our acquisition zone. And so we found that this was way better. So a couple of the iterations were there was, I would say about 3 iterations that the coral would be grabbed from the inside. And it was just testing, does 4 wheels work? Does 3 wheels work? All of that. And then after that, about iteration 4 and 5, it was adding the algae portion, but that was powered by, it was 2 motors. So one motor was for the coral and another one was for the algae. And then we finally settled on this iteration on about version 6. And so we had a small version of it that would kind of, it was a super simple version. And then by version 7, we had this, which increased our acquisition zone. So a coral is 4.5 inches, and this from plate to plate is about 7. So we added this wedge here that was able to increase the acquisition zone. So we're able to grab coral from about 9 inches, which including this this wedge right here. Going to the hang now, our hang is a 365-to-1 ratio, and you can see here that that's powered by a Kraken X60, and you can see all the gears here. We have rope that's being pulled down so that the hang is, when the hang gets into its hang position. And then from there, you have a sort of a 2910 kind of style cage grabber with the 2 4-inch wheels, and then you have the hooks with a spring at the back right here, and then that's all powered by a Kraken X44. And then going off into the algae intake, the algae intake was our last addition to the robot. It was done right before Champs, and this is so that we can grab algae off of the ground. And I can hand it over to Amy to talk more about the logistics behind that.
I'm Amy Flores, and going through the strategy of making the decision to add the algae intake specifically that can pick up algae off the ground, we wanted to fill the role of a third robot that could complement these strongly scoring coral robots who had ground intakes for coral specifically. We saw a lot of potential in the points from the algae on the ground, and we knew that we could efficiently be able to handle those game pieces and look appealing to other more competitive teams. That got us into adding a whole nother sector to our safety code, which was how we would manipulate and handle the game pieces on the field without interfering or hitting the robot or game elements on the field. And a lot of it is auto scoring and automation, which allows us to have one driver.
And now I'm going to talk about our driver optimizations and localization of our robots. So we utilize 2 Limelight 4s on our robots. They're centered right in front of the tag, so when we're lining up to score, we can see a tag at all times. And so we utilize Mega Tag 1 and Mega Tag 2 to get the best pose possible, because our robot utilizes a lot of pose and not only snaps, auto drive, but a lot of other things as well. So we use one driver because it allowed us to have like a lot more versatile, not only in strategy, but like being able to utilize auto drive a lot more than we normally would. So we have auto drive for almost everything. The only exceptions are barge and ground algae, which are just totally on the driver, which is me. In the beginning of the season, we utilized this button box right here, which corresponded to a pull on the reef. So our decision to change to one driver allowed us to have like a lot more versatile, not only strategy with having 2 human players. So we were able to fill that role of having 1 human player at each station, which allowed our driver, me, to go either way, because early in the season there was a lot more defense than we see now. So moving back to our Limelights, our robot is very, very pose heavy. So if we're on one side of the field versus another, it changes our like snaps. And so having really good pose is really needed for us to have not only good scoring, but also consistency. So having all of this just overall makes us a better team and allows us to do a lot more. And either it's algae or coral or hanging, everything just becomes a lot more cohesive when we have a good pose, which is why our Limelights are very important.
All right, folks, so that was your look here at Team 9408's robot coming off a Chezy Champs win just 2 weeks ago. Really, really incredible machine. So thank you guys so much for allowing us to come and take a look at this robot, and good luck with the rest of your competition.